I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker here tonight. He's a first-time speaker here at our Crossroads meetings. Recommended highly by one of our ministry volunteers, Andy Dewan. Mike Ganiere is a sourcing specialist for talent acquisition at Johnson Controls, and he's going to be presenting tonight a topic called the uncommon job search. Please help me welcome Michael.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
Did Andy come tonight? I wasn't sure if he was going to come tonight.
I don't think he's here.
Oh, all right. Well, good deal. As Tom mentioned, I'm Mike Ganiere. I work with Johnson Controls, and I do that full time. And I really enjoy doing what I'm doing. I always say that my job, whatever it has been, I do my job as to benefit or to support my ministry habit. I actually work on a part-time staff now for almost 6 years with Oak Creek Assembly of God. I lead worship every week, and so I lead all the music and things. In fact, I lead a commercial music band too. So we called In This Room. We actually opened for Cutlass in November in the sanctuary downstairs. So it's kind of strange having all these different activities coming into the church. In fact, Andy told me I should just quit and come over here, so we'll see. But anyway, let me tell you a little bit about myself and a little bit about my own search. And I've only been working in the professional world for 12 years now, post-college. I started my career, I went to school to be a youth pastor. And all the way through my high school years and things, I focused thinking, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to focus on youth ministry and really developing kids and just helping them pursue spiritual greatness, I guess. And I still enjoy some of those passions, but I got done with school and moved back to Wisconsin and lived with my mom and dad. I'm like, man, I've got $25,000 worth of school debt. I better get rid of that because I'm not going to make a dime in ministry. So I'm like, I better get rid of my debt. So I started working for Pepsi. And I drove a truck for them for a while, and then I moved over to Nestle and started in sales there, and I worked there for a little over 5 years. And I just enjoyed sales so much. I was always involved with ministry, and again, still am. I work part-time with the church again. But I really enjoy sales. I've always enjoyed relationships, but there came a point where a career transition was necessary for me. And what I really focused on was just thinking back about what it is I enjoyed about my job. I'd been with Nestle for 5 years, and granted, I'm only 25 years old, just almost 26. And I'd been there for a good amount of time. I really enjoyed my boss a lot. Loved my boss's boss, our branch manager. I really enjoyed working for him specifically. The team I had was really great. I got to split my time between Milwaukee and Chicago, and so I got to have a lot of fun down there. I have a couple of kids now. I have a 3.5-year-old daughter and an almost 1-year-old son. But they weren't around then, so my wife and I could just travel as we wanted to, and I had a lot of vacation, and I made a good salary, and it seems like everything's really good. Why in the world do I want to give up on that? But there was just something that was missing from it, and I really wanted to focus on I was selling a product at the time, and I wanted to focus more on people. And I think some of the ministry pieces that I had kind of played to that. So I really wanted to focus on that, and I moved from, I have what I call the multitude of counsel, and it comes from a verse in Proverbs that says that in the multitude of counsel there is safety. And so I have this group I call the multitude of counsel, and it's really just 4 people that every time I have a big decision to make, I reach out to them individually just to run it past them and see what their thoughts are. And 2 of the 4 actually suggested outright that I go into recruiting, and I'm like, I don't know anything about it, And I ended up working then for Robert Half for a little while, and I started selling recruiting services. So it was a transition from, it was still sales, but just in the recruiting world. And I'm like, well, I can see how that goes for a little while. Absolutely loved recruiting, loved working with people and dealing with people on a regular basis. But the thing I enjoyed the most was really helping people take the next step. There was a point where I felt kind of hopeless, and I'll explain that here in a little bit. But it's good to know that it's good to enjoy your job, and it's good to know that God has everything in control. As as Tom and our pastor was saying here before. So I started working for Robert Half for a little while, worked there for about a year and a half, then moved to an executive recruiter and was doing executive headhunting in a third-party agency for IT leadership positions. And I started working for Johnson Controls and was a vendor to JCI and filled several positions there. And then through connection with one of the managers there, ended up, I now work for Johnson Controls for the last year and a half internally. And I still do kind of pretty much like a headhunter, but instead of paying all these big, huge fees to me outside, they just hired me. So I guess it made a little bit more sense to the bottom line. There's 4 of us, and we support, I support all the leadership positions at Johnson Controls and call our competitors and try and get them to come over here. And hopefully open up more opportunities for any of you guys to get jobs, right? So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a job search tonight. And the reason, I was talking with Andy about some of the different topics that I could present and get to speak a lot in these kind of opportunities, and some of the topics that we can present. And this one keeps standing out to me as I come now full circle in both sides of the equation. I worked in staffing and temporary and contingent placement, direct placement, executive level searching, and now I work for a corporate company in an inside. And so you see, honestly, I feel like there's a problem on all around. And I experienced it myself when I was doing my own job search, and I also experienced it from the other side, having a job, watching people do job searches. And it's really simply this. So let's just start, and I'll give you a couple of stats here real quick. 75% of jobs that get filled are never touch a job board. 75%. So if you think of all the positions you're looking at, how many of you have looked at a job, how many of you, let me just gauge you, how many of you are looking for a job currently? Either working currently, looking for a new position, or you're just looking for a new position? Is it just about everybody? Okay. So we have, how many of you then have looked at a job board within the last week? Say since Sunday you've looked at a job board, you have an email that comes to you that has jobs in it, whatever the case, right? 75% of jobs never get to those emails and never get posted to those job boards. Has anyone ever been in an employer situation and posted a job on, say, Monster, bought a job posting in 30 days of resume access? Have you any idea how much that costs to do it? Does anyone have any ideas? I'm sorry?
Somewhere up to 2,000.
$2,000, I heard 500, I think. It's I just checked here last week, so it's $1,850 to post one job in search resume database for 30 days on Monster. I'm sure we get a big discount with Johnson Controls since we post all of our jobs there. We currently have 1,800 open in North America. But if you're an employer, you want to post one position, you want to buy a one-off job posting, you'll pay $1,800 for that, for that one job posting. So if I'm an employer and I want to go to and hire, if I'm going to hire somebody, the first place I'm going to go is who do I know that can fill this job, right? But you think from an employer's perspective, I'm first going to go to the people I know and trust. I'm going to talk to my referrals, possibly somebody I've worked with previously, someone I trust, and somebody they might know. I'm going to extend that. Secondly, and pretty quickly, I'm going to go to the people that work for me and say, who do you know? And that's where a lot of employee or referral bonuses come from with your companies. Who do you know wants to work here? If you enjoy your job, which hopefully you do, but if you enjoy your job, who do you know and we'll pay you $1,000 or $1,500? I have a friend my brother-in-law works for Rexnord, and they get paid $5,000 if they refer a friend or somebody that gets hired to their position. So it's all over the board, but I'm going to go to the people that if you're a good worker and you recommend somebody, certainly I'm going to try and find out if that's somebody that could be a fit for this particular position. If not there, I'm going to ask for, I'm going to go to the HR group and say, let's post this position. So almost as a last resort to all of the things that I know in my own network and my employees' network, then I'm going to go outside and see who else I can find. And when I think about it from that perspective, if I can fill that position in my network or my employees' network, it's going to save me a whole lot more money, and I'm going to have a whole lot more familiarity. If either I know someone firsthand, and trust them because I previously worked with them and saw their work habits. I know the work habits of the employees that work for me, and their recommendation stands pretty strong. When I go outside of the job boards, I know absolutely nothing about you except what could potentially be posted on your maybe 1-2 page resume. That's all I know, and I'm inviting you to a lot of vulnerabilities in my company. You're going to have access to financial information. You're going to have a lot of opportunity, access to financial information. You can make purchases. You can potentially hire and fire. You can see employee records. You can see a lot of confidential information, and I know nothing about you. So I'm really going to the job boards as a last resort. But really, what else is there? You don't have a whole lot more opportunity. If only 1 out of every 4 positions that gets filled in the Milwaukee area here are ever going to make it to Milwaukee Jobs and Career Builder and Monster or Dice or wherever on Ladders, LinkedIn, wherever else you go, if only 1 in 4 of those jobs is going to make it there, how do we find those other 3 out of 4? The ones that aren't on the job boards I don't know about yet that I really want to access. If I'm looking for a sales manager position, I see all the sales management jobs and I see all the fly-by-night companies that will interview you all day long and offer the world as long as you want to work for them for 5 months for nothing and then hopefully find your paycheck. If you want to get past all of those into some real meat jobs, how do you find those other 3 out of 4 that never make it? And it's really, it's a lot of hard work, and that's why it's uncommon. So let's go to another statistic here, is that 50% of people get hired directly or indirectly through personal connections. Half of people that get hired in positions get hired directly or indirectly through somebody personal. Either I know somebody who works at this company who passed my resume through to their boss who gave it to HR and kind of worked its way up the train. Again, it's one closer connection than I don't know you at all. Well, somebody who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone is better than I don't know you at all. So that's indirectly, or directly is that I know somebody who's in a hiring position at that company and got hired directly, with that company because I directly know them. You'd be surprised at who you know once you identify companies that you're interested in. You'd be surprised who you know at those companies or who you know knows someone who could potentially be a point of influence in one of those companies, but you don't know how to get there unless you open up your mouth. So we'll get to how we do that. The last thing here is that 98% of candidates only use job boards as their primary source of job search activity. So there's another statistic that says for every job, that you have to fill out or apply to 50 jobs. I think it was like 48.57 or something, jobs on the internet, jobs posted to the internet, to get calls back on 2 of them, decline emails on 10 of them, and you're not ever going to hear from 30. 30 of them you're never going to hear back from. So you're going to spend all your time applying to 30 of those jobs. You're never going to hear from them, ever. 10 of those people, you're automatically going to get a canned email saying, hey, we're not interested in your background, or you're going to get an email from somebody, hey, we're not interested in you, potentially search something in the future, keep your eyes peeled on our website, that kind of thing. And then you're going to get a direct contact from 2 people. I have to apply to 50 positions to get 2 people to respond to me. And that might not even be positive, it just might be, I'm going to get a response directly from someone. If that's the case, man, is that depressing? How easy it is to get so discouraged just because I'm constantly, I just applied to that job. I'm a good fit for that job based on what I can see. I'm a good fit for that position. But I didn't get a response for it when I applied 6 weeks ago. It didn't show up on the job boards last 2 weeks, but now they've got that job posted again. I guess I'll apply again. And we'll just see what happens, So you keep getting your hopes up and then slam back to the ground, and get your little bit of hopes up and slam back to the ground. It's depressing. And
yeah, Mike, I really like that last stat. Totally believable. Where did that statistic come from? Is there a way you can source that?
Yeah, this information there are different pieces. I have to go look specifically, but sessions that I've been a part of and hearing other speakers. I think this one was from Career Builder. I think it's from a presentation that they had in 2007 or 2009, I'm sorry, at the Milwaukee Job Camp, I believe.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So let's jump into a little bit. So here's the uncommon job search. If 98% of people are only using job boards to source for their positions, I mean, the only job search activity I'm going to do is go to job boards and apply there. The other 2% of people, that's the place where I want to be. Now, certainly I'm not advocating that you not use job boards. Again, that represents 25% of open positions. Another thing that is not factored into that 75% statistic is that if there's multiple positions, so if, say I have 8, we have, I don't know, 40 account executive positions open in one of our businesses across all of North America, I may post that position just once. Those other 39 won't get to the job board. I'm not going to waste all that posting on those other 39 positions. I have that one posting out there, and I could hire 40 people on that one posting. So it doesn't include that kind of activity, but I certainly advocate using the job boards, but not as your primary source. Certainly that can generate some leads for you. I'm going to give you another job search activity. It's going to walk you through. There's 9 steps here, and this is really just formed over the last 3 years as I've helped myself and some of my friends, and then I've now been hired a little bit over 100 times as a career consultant for people in their own job search, in maximizing their time, focusing their job activity and things. And so it all comes from that. So let's jump into the process. Step number 1 is identifying your strengths. Marcus Buckingham wrote a book. He's part of the same group with Stephen Covey, who wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, if you're familiar with that. He's part of the same speakers bureau with Stephen Covey. And Marcus Buckingham is an English guy who wrote a book called Now Discover Your Strengths. And then a few years ago, he wrote a follow-up book to that that says, Now Go Put Your Strengths to Work. And his perspective, have anybody ever read one of those 2 books or are familiar with him? Okay, just a few. One of his thoughts specifically is that your strengths aren't just what you're good at. I think what we always identify is it kind of gets the can. What things are you good at, and those are your strengths. What he says is your strengths, you're going to be naturally good at them. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I'm a good organizer, but I hate it. It couldn't drive me more nuts when I come into an unorganized spreadsheet, or I come home and things are just completely disorganized. It makes me crazy, and I'm good at doing it, but it makes me nuts. It doesn't invigorate me. Marcus Buckingham says that your strengths are the things that invigorate you. It's the things that you do, it's the activities that you do that at the end of the day, you look down and it's like, oh man, it's 5:30, I have to go home. Not because you hate going home, but you just love what you're doing so much, and time just flies through the day. So his suggestion is to identify what your strengths are. You have to figure those out. If you can name them, that's what you need to do. But try and find out the activities that you do personally, the things that you do to manage your house, the things that you do to manage relationships, the things that you do in your current or recent jobs, the things that you do, the activities that you go through in a particular day that invigorate you. If you can find a position that makes you, he says that if you can find a position that uses those strengths at 85% of your day, that other 15% of whatever it is that you don't like really just goes to the wind, because you're really doing what it is that you enjoy. So that's his suggestion, is that your strengths are things that you're certainly going to be good at them, but don't stop there. The things that invigorate you are what you need to identify. So come up with a list of those. The second thing that you need to do is prepare. So this is just coming into you build your resume based off you build your resume based off your strengths. My suggestion, and I could do a whole other hour on where I could talk a lot longer than that about your resume and building your resume. If you're going to build your resume, the best thing to do, if you feel like you keep getting nowhere and it doesn't really look that great, start absolutely from zero. Don't start with a template. Don't start with anything. Start at the bottom and figure out what it is that you are good at. What strengths do you have? What kind of things are you looking for? And then take those strengths and apply them specifically. Apply those strengths specifically to your previous work history. I'm going to find out, one of my strengths. I really enjoy pulling information out, getting information out of people that they didn't know that was there. For instance, I really enjoy, this is one of my strengths, if you have no idea what bullets to put on your resume under a particular job, I love interviewing you and trying to find out what those gold nuggets are. When I see the eyeballs pop in your head about, wow, I actually do have some pretty significant accomplishments at that company, I love that. I can do that all day long. So I really enjoy that. So I want to try and find those kind of, I want to try and find that skill set and highlight it in previous jobs. If this is a job that I'm looking for, I want to find something with that skill set. I want to try and take that same skill set and identify other things. In my sales jobs, it was specifically I wanted to listen to you as a customer and find out what it was, what your needs were. Even if you don't know how to define them, I'm listening for the keywords and help pull out those needs so that we can meet your need. That was if I was building a sales resume, that's where I would go. I'd focus specifically there. In recruiting, it's easy, and helping you identify what kind of things are your strengths so that you can help find you a job. So identify what your strengths are and then build your resume based off your strengths. So create a resume based, the second piece, create a resume based off of your accomplishments and behavior. I would say it this way, if you had a twin and you and your twin both had the exact same education, had the exact same job titles at the same companies for the same amount of time in each role, and you are both applying for the same position again, and I was a hiring manager I'm looking at two very different people. You both have very different personalities, you both have very different aptitudes and strengths and weaknesses, but I can't tell at all from your resume if it's written off of your job duties. If your job duties are the only things in your resume, you don't stand out. It's the same thing I see in everybody else. The thing that stands off is how you did it, not what you did, how you did it. Tell me the things that you accomplished or how you did your job, not just what you did. So that's a whole other conversation. The next piece is making a draft of the job description for the next intended role. What kind of job houses, what kind of job position, so specifically the job title, job function, however you want to say it, what kind of job would you have if you took the strengths that you identified in step number 1 and you put those to 85, did that 85%. I'm going to do these strengths 85% of my day. What kind of job is that? Is that an accountant? Is that a finance analyst? Is that a salesman? Is that an HR manager? Whatever it is, come up with some kind of function. Could be a couple of different functions, that's fine. I feel like now that depending on the kind of product or service, I feel like I could go back into a sales role again and confidently because I enjoy it. I love recruiting and I love this. I love this whole world. So it'd be difficult to lure me back into sales, but I enjoy sales, so I can do that too. But that's just a whole other another job function that I could come up with. So I want to try and identify what it is that the job description. What kind of company am I going to work at? Sometimes the things that are, based on the strengths, you wouldn't work well in a large company. I worked for Pepsi, I worked for Nestle and Robert Half, all Fortune 500 companies, and then I went to work for the smallest company ever. It was me, probably not ever, I'm sure there's all kinds of soul owners out there, but it was me, a partner, and we had 3 part-time research associates. I thought I was really frustrated with some of the large corporate processes, so I thought working for a small business would be a perfect match to offset what was really frustrating about the large corporate offices. What I found was that I really loved the processes. It was just a matter of some of them I just felt like were unnecessary, and that just happens, it's okay. So that's part of my 15%, some of those processes and the things that you do just because it's a company, this is just what we do. We fill out spreadsheets for unnecessary reasons sometimes, so it is what it is. So I ended up back to JCI. Through that, I really realized I missed that large corporate environment. So for me, I'd want to work for a large corporation. For my dad, it was completely the opposite. He worked for a large corporation for many years, and 27 years into his career with that company, he decided to go out and start his own business. The last 5 years he was at that large company, he was the most down in the dumps and discouraged guy I've ever seen in my entire life. And it was part of the latter part of my high school through my college years. Just down quite a bit. I talked to him and things aren't really going that great. And he's always a really positive, good guy. When he started his own company, he's working by himself and it struggles. He makes half of what he did at the corporation, but he couldn't be happier. And so it's like, it's not right or wrong, it's just a matter of your preferences. So maybe the larger company is a better fit for you, maybe a smaller company. Maybe a company that focuses in this industry just because of how you're passionate. Healthcare is a good fit, but along with healthcare could be pharmaceuticals, could be in-home health, could be healthcare products. Depending on whatever it is that you enjoy and the things that you're passionate about, it could go all over the place. So focus on whatever it is that build that job description. What do you do? What kind of company? What industry are you working in? What kind of management would I work for? What kind of management structure would I want to see? Try and build as much of that information as you can. After that, we're going to move to number 4, and identify the kinds of titles that your ideal position would report to. So now that you've got a good idea of what kind of job you're looking for, and it may be a little bit different from what you first intended when you were just looking at the websites and trying to find out what's posted. Because then I'm really, in that sense, I'm crafting my thoughts of what I can do to what's available. But since what's available is really through a clouded glass, because on the other side of that clouded glass, there's a whole lot more jobs available, I'm really cutting myself off from a lot of opportunities. So this direction, I'm going, starting from me and my strengths and building everything around there. What kind of now jobs does my position report to? Do I report to the manager of quality? Would I report to the director of human resources? Would I report to an engineering manager? Would I report to an administrative or an office manager? Would I report directly to the CEO? You know, I get some people on the phone, it's like, I want a job that reports to CEO. It's like, we have a $35 billion company. It's going to be difficult. He's only got 6 direct reports. You try and identify where your position fits and what kind of titles you report to. Once you identify the kind of titles you report to, I say the next piece is consider the kind of commute you'd want to have. If you don't mind, I mean, I don't. For 5 years that I worked for Nestle, I live in Oak Creek off Ryan Road, and I'm right off the freeway. But for the first 3.5 years, or almost 4 years, I worked in Sussex. So on a good day in the morning, it would take me about 35 minutes to get to work and 45 minutes home. And that was okay. At the latter part, I was driving down to Northbrook, Illinois, which is 54 miles door to door. And that was a little long, but it was still manageable for me. I listen to music quite a bit and a lot of books on tape, and I talk a lot, if you can't tell. So I spent a lot of time on the phone. I was in sales, and so it worked out good. I spent a lot of time with customers on the phone there. And so that I didn't mind a longer commute, but try and find what kind of commute is palatable for you. My mom, if she works more than 15 minutes from home, she's getting a different job. She didn't care what the pay is. So everybody has a different threshold of what's acceptable to you. So identify what kind of commute you think is acceptable, and then I try and do this as honestly and objectively as possible. I realize if you're unemployed, that number might be 4 hours. Just because I'll take anything between here and Sioux City, Iowa, or something. There's a lot of companies between here and Cedar Rapids or something. Try and find something palatable for you. If it was ideal, what would it be? And maybe around the corner, that'd be great. I don't know. I love the car ride just because there's a lot of downtime after work sometimes. Clear my head. Today is beautiful driving here from work. There's all the windows open, the music on. I love it. So. There's a lot of different opportunity for you to identify what kind of thing you really want. So this is the point of trying to do it as objectively as possible. So we're going to try and find out what kind of a commute you want. On the other end of that, I'm going to try and make a list of companies that I would target within that area. So I've already identified what kind of company I'm really trying to find. Company industry, maybe the size of the company, vision, things like that. And I know within a certain range of where I'm going to try and go, what I'm going to try and do with my job search is target specific companies. So now I'm going to head out to the internet. So on your handout, I don't have this on the screen, but on your handout, in letter A there, underneath number 5, letter A, it says to check out hoovers.com or monta.com. Both of those are company search sites, and they are subscription based. But there's one thing I found out a few years ago when I was doing my own job search. If you go to the library, oftentimes your library website, because you're a member there, will have access to several different databases. USA Search, USA Anywhere. There's a lot of different databases available where you can search for companies within 15 miles of a particular zip code that have 10,000 employees or more, or have a revenue of whatever, or have an industry. You can sort by those. And what I did is I just created a list of 15 companies. I generally suggest 20, but I had 15 companies that met my search results, and so those are the first 15 I put on my list. And the first thing I did then is I went to those 15 companies' websites and just started looking around at their website to see if this company really matches something that I'm interested in. And just found more information. One thing that's interesting, it doesn't cost me a dime to post my job on my website. So if there's a company specifically that I'm interested in and I go to that company's website, often you'll find positions posted there that never make it to a job board. At Johnson Controls, we have 1,800 positions open currently in North America, but we only buy, I think, 350 Monster postings a month. So of the 1,800, we only have at most 350 of those positions posted on Monster, Career Builder, or whatever. You won't find more than that at one time. Yeah?
Does Indeed pick up the ones you have on your website?
Yeah, Indeed scrapes most of them. There are some that we can flag separately to not pick, but most of the positions would get scraped by Indeed. But you still would find positions at our website that Indeed wouldn't grab just because we told them not to. And mostly that's for positions that we think would be easy to fill. We don't honestly want an overabundance of candidates. Let's just do some easy math. I'll tell you, one of the most frustrating things being a job seeker and then hearing complaints as an employer or recruiter dealing with candidates quite a bit is that I never hear back from anyone, right? When I was in the third-party world and I was looking from the outside, it's like there's no real excuse for someone not. I mean, I'm expressing interest in your company. You posted it. Respond to me. You know, it's just rude. Don't just not respond. Coming to the inside now, we now have 30 recruiters for North America. When I started with the company, and then there's 4 of us in our team that work more like a headhunter firm. So there's really 34 of us filling positions every day. When I started with the company, we had 16 recruiters. And so if you take those 16 recruiters, and we had, I think last year, or within the last year, our average position, let's just say it was 1,000. Oh, just easy math, 1,600 since we're over 1,800 now. Is it 1,800 positions open right now? We have 30 recruiters. So if I jump into that, let's just assume it's just a little less. Let's just say that each recruiter has 60 positions that they're individually recruiting for. The average position that we fill is $62,000, and the average number of responses that we get if it's posted externally is going to be a 97. So if we have 60 positions open with 97 candidates that are going to apply to each one. If I don't even know, it's at 500 people, 500 resumes. Is that right? 50. Oh, see, I'm supposed to say I'm like so 5,000 resumes rather that I have on my desk to go through. It's just not possible. I can look at resumes for a solid 2 hours without a break, and by the end of that 2 hours, they're all starting to look the same. So it's just not possible. So as much as I can be frustrated, depending on the company, and I realize that's not the situation in every company, but depending on where it's at, it's difficult. It's difficult, absolutely difficult to get to every one of the applicants that we have. So all of that to say, find a list of companies and check out the websites. Take a look at them, research them a little bit, see what you can find out on their company page. There's a lot of information. If you check out sometimes an investor tab, they'll have press releases that specifically relate to investing. If you're interested in investing in the company, you go to that tab and it'll give you some more information that you wouldn't find on their regular website. Some things that they're involved with, in the communities. There's different press releases that you'll find. You can find names of individuals and things from there. But anyway, research these companies and again, check with the library. So number 6 then is to then find the names of individuals who are currently in the positions that you targeted. So number 3, we wanted to find the kind of titles that I would report to. So now I have the name of a company. Now I need to try and research who those individuals are that I would report to in that company. Now, another thing that's really frustrating is, man, where in the world do you go? Unless you're just going to straight call and say, could you tell me who the operations manager is? And companies are getting real keen on, keeping information quiet. But with the information age and the internet, there's a whole lot more information available on the internet. So I want to show you a couple of different things that you can do to find information on names here. So I'll buzz through the rest of these real quick, and I'll come back to that. So number 7, once you have the names, and again, I'll show you how you can get some names quickly, but once you have the names of some people that you're going to contact them. You got to put together an exploratory call, and I'm going to introduce myself to whoever answers the phone on the other end, not the receptionist, but once I have the name, I'm going to ask for that person. If they answer the phone, this is what I'm going to say. And I highly recommend that you write it down. Because as soon as somebody picks up the phone, often you just get blank, or you say things you regret, or they say things you don't really mean, or you're just stumbling over words. And so know what it is that know the purpose of your call. So if you continue through the bullets there, the first thing you want to establish is who you are. Second, why you're calling, and why you're calling specifically to that person. You could call anybody in this company. Why me? C, under number 7 there, is what kind of asset do you have? What are you offering? Why is it good for me to talk to you right now? And the 4th thing is that you want to ask them where you think they could be, where you could be a fit in the company. Now, one of the things I'll throw out here as an asterisk, and I think it actually is, I don't know if I have it. Well, we'll find it if we do. One of the things I want to highlight in that is that don't call with the atmosphere in your voice that this person will potentially hire you. They very well might hire you. I believe in the good of people. I think people want to help you. And if you talk to somebody directly, the most frustrating thing is when you get a call from a salesman who's trying to sell you no matter what, whether or not you're interested, they're still trying to sell you. But if you called up and it didn't sound like necessarily you're trying to sell, you're just looking for information, I might refer you to someone. I might not be interested, but I might refer you to someone. So if you're not trying to always close the sale on whoever it is that answers the phone, they might not be the person you really want to talk to anyway. So be careful of that. What you're really trying to do is just ask for their help. This is the situation I'm in. This is who I am. This is why I'm calling you. This is why I thought I'd call you. And if you're not the right person, who is? Are you the right person to talk to about this? I found your profile on whatever, and I'll get there. But I thought you might be the right person to talk to about opportunities, blah blah blah. If that's not the right, who else could it be? And a lot of times you'd be surprised what you get on the phone when you ask. So all of it, there's a lot more information there. So number 8, make the call. This activity is the hardest activity. It's a lot easier to hit the apply button or apply here on a website or a job board. It's much easier to do that than to go through all this search activity. But I promise you, the results in a search like this, the results that you're going to have are going to be a lot more fulfilling. It's a lot harder to take a no, but you're going to have a lot more opportunity come from a search like this. So make the call. Talk to them on the phone, send them an email. We'll get there too. The follow-up. Follow-up, letter A, specifically pay attention to that one. I always suggest 2 forms of contact a week is okay. Everyone's always like, how often should I call? I've been calling this guy every day. And it's like, don't call him every day. I always say one active and one passive or inactive contact per week is okay. And I'm always going to reference, in the one contact, I'm always going to reference the other contact. So an active contact, I'm always going to say is a phone call, or if I meet somebody face-to-face, that's an active contact. An email or a letter in the mail, a note card or something along that line is a passive or inactive contact. So one of each of those per week is okay. If I call on a Monday and say, hey, I met you last Thursday at this networking event, whatever the case, I don't know, here's the rest of my information, just leave a voice message. I'm going to follow up with you in an email on Thursday. Or, hey, last week I sent you an email, I'm just calling to follow up on that email. And then I'm going to reference it again. So in an email on Monday, say, hey, I'm going to give you a call on Thursday. Feel free to call me. I'm going to give you a call on Thursday afternoon if I haven't heard from you by then. You can reach me here, whatever. But what that does is that always lets me know that this one thing is not going to be the end. And it's not a matter of bother, but I promise you there's a lot of things in my email box that if I don't know I'm going to be held accountable for, they may not get done. I get calls from vendors all day who want to start working with Johnson Controls and selling to us. And if they put in there that they're going to call me on Thursday, it's like, I better research it right now so that I know whether or not I want to talk to them Thursday. So I'll get ahead of the game now. So I'm going to respond more quickly to those emails and phone calls than I would if they just say, hey, thanks, give me a call when you're available. You're kind of going to go to the bottom of the list. And I don't do that consciously all the time. It's just a subconscious thing. And I realized that once I started working in an agency. All right, so make the calls and follow up. Keep track of the activity that you have for sure so that you know there's consistency there. But make sure that you always, again, reference other forms of contact. So before we jump onto the internet here, I want to focus on a couple of things. There's some different job search tips that I want to give to you for a little bit. The first thing is managing your discouragement. And I want you to, if you have a pen, scratch out Isaiah 65 there. And I'd written this down just as a quick reference, but I read that yesterday and I was the wrong one when I was creating this. And I don't often get to speak to Christian groups, so it's not often that I get to use scripture, so this is great. Isaiah 40, there was a point in my life, it was right before, the year before I made the transition away from Nestle, that I was just, I was kind of in a funk. I was doing fine at work. I was doing really well, in fact. I think we had 388 reps on a national base, and that year I think I was number 2 out of 388 4 times, and number 4 2 or 3 times. So I was doing really well in sales. I was married. My wife was pregnant with our first daughter. She was going to be born in September that year. I had been working at the church now, doing something I love. I love leading worship. I love music. I love the presence of God. And I love encouraging other people to experience that and leading that experience for them. I love it. I'm in the middle of a lot of really great things. I own a house in Oak Creek. I got 2 dogs. I don't know what else you want to add to the pot that just makes it seem like, wow, his life should be perfect. And I was at the bottom of it. I don't know what the problem was. And I do a pretty good job of masking it. And my wife asked me one day, it was on a Sunday night, I'd just gotten home from church, had our evening service, and I got home, cleaning up some stuff downstairs, whatever, had a sandwich, did whatever, and climbed in bed probably 9:45. It's like our nightly routine, 9:45 or 10, just climb in bed and read some books and watch the news and fall asleep eventually, right? And I climbed in bed and I just kind of let out a big sigh, just closed my eyes, and just, the day's done. And my wife just says, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I don't have nothing, I guess. And she's like, no, I mean, for a whole month, you've really been down in the dumps. And I'm like, I don't know what it is. I'm like, I guess I'm just discouraged. And I just started bawling my eyes out. And I'm generally an emotional guy, so it's not, I watched a YouTube video yesterday of this guy proposing to this girl, and I was almost crying then. So I'm generally an emotional guy, so don't take that a whole lot. But I just started bawling my eyes out, and it's like a whole lot more than anything else, and it was really difficult. And I just had to say it, I'm discouraged. And when you're in a job search, and I've been at the point where you're just down. You either don't like what you do so much, or you haven't had a job and you really want to. So I was at a point where I didn't want this job anymore. I really don't want it. I don't like what I'm doing anymore, just because I had this other thing in my mind. And I was also in another area in my life. I felt like I was in an okay spot. I knew I was supposed to be there, but I didn't like some of the circumstances made it really difficult. And so I really wanted or longed for something else, even though I felt like this is really where I should be. This is more of a valley, right? And so I'm sitting there, and I don't know, I just finished a couple of books, and I read quite a bit. And so I went downstairs to our bookshelf, and I was actually, I should give her some credit here. I married really well, and so I really thank God for that, for directing my steps there. But it was at that point, my wife and I sing quite a bit together, she prayed for me, and then I was just quiet. She didn't have a whole lot to say, and she just started singing, why should I feel discouraged? His eyes on the sparrow, and the verses that he's watching out for us. And it's like it just brought back an easy reminder that I'm not the one in control. And there's a couple of things that I had to find. And, number one was Isaiah 40, verse number 31. And NIV says that those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength, and they'll soar on wings like eagle. They'll run and not grow weary, and they'll walk and not faint. But I love what the New Living Translation says, that those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. Sometimes I think when I read it, they'll renew their strength. It's like I have the same strength I had before. It's like the New Living Translation puts a different kind of a spin on there. It's new strength. It's something brand new. I haven't experienced this before. Because sometimes I just don't want what I had before. You know, it's like I've had strength before, and this is a whole lot bigger than that. And I love that thought there that, you know, that we'll find new strength, but it's for those who hope in the Lord. And in Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6, it says that you ought to trust in the Lord with all of your heart, not just a little piece, but all of your heart, or hope in the Lord with all of your heart. Hope as though there's nowhere else to go. I have nowhere else to consider a level playing field or a point of stability for me, except hope in the Lord with all of my heart, and lean not on what? Your own understanding. Boy, I wish I could get that more often. Lean not on your own understanding, but in all of your ways, in every way, consider Him, acknowledge Him, trust Him, recognize where God's at. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He'll make your path straight. And I think, like, I tie that to worship quite a bit and say that in all of your ways, consider God, or point out the attributes of God. In all of your ways, consider how God has gotten you to this point. You've never ever trusted God and have been disappointed, have you? So remind yourself of that. In all of your ways, consider God. In all of your job searching, consider God. I've never been disappointed, God, when I've sought you. I've never been disappointed in the moment. I may have felt like it, but in the end, in the long term, I am always thankful that God knows better than me. Because what I wanted sometimes wasn't really what I wanted, you know? What I wanted really was my demise, and I didn't know that, I didn't see it. Or what I ended up getting, by not getting what I wanted, was something so much bigger. I'm so much more thankful for that. I've never been disappointed when I trusted God. So trust Him with your whole heart, and lean not on the things that you think are best, or I think are best, but in all of my ways, consider God, acknowledge God, and He'll make my path straight. Out of all of that, I determined this. It's just simply that you're disciplined. And I wrote this down here. You're disciplined to do the right things when you're in the valley. That's what determines the height of your next mountaintop. And I'll say this, it's like the things that are right. You know, I think when we come to a job search and you're applying to jobs online, and that's not going very well for you, this tactic that you're having isn't very good. It starts to become less of a priority until I'm really not doing a whole lot. Or it becomes a little, you know, the first week that you're unemployed, or the first week you decide to do your job search, boy, you're really focused, and I'm applying to this job and this thing, but then after a month, 2 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, whatever it is, then it starts trailing off, and it's like, why do I keep doing the same things? Why do I keep doing the same job search activity? Man, Mike, you highlighted 9 steps for me to take, and boy, this is hard work. Applying for jobs is hard enough, man. Then all of a sudden I got to do internet research and all this other stuff with 9 other bullets. And on the end of those 9 bullets, I'm tired and I'm kind of broken down, man. You're disciplined to keep doing what you know you should do, the right things. You're disciplined to keep considering God and keep pointing out that it's not your job to provide for you. It's God's job. Your job is to be faithful to the responsibility you've been given. So it's not your job to provide for your family. That's God's job. That's in His hands. So let that responsibility off your chest and focus on what it is that you need to do. You're disciplined to do the right things when you're in the valley determines the height of the next mountaintop. Not just because God's going to automatically bless you with so much more and you're going to have a greater mountain, but you're going to develop strength in the valley that's going to allow you to climb higher on the mountain. So the look that you'll have on the other side of this is going to be so much bigger and more vivid and large because you've been disciplined when it was not going well to keep doing the things that you should be doing. When I was kind of discouraged at that point, I'm singing, I'm praying, I'm reading my Bible, and it just seems like when I sing, it stops at the ceiling, or the dogs are the only one who can hear it. When I pray, it's like I'm just talking to the clouds. And it's like I read the Bible, and it's good nighttime sleep medicine, but nothing's jumping off the page here. It's just dry. But you're disciplined to keep doing the things you know you should be doing. Once you come through that valley, God never promises you're not going to go through the valley, and He's never going to promise you're always going to hit the mountain peak in a certain amount of time. But He promises that He's never ever going to leave. He's never going to fail you. You've never ever been disappointed when you trusted God that way. So focus on that. Discipline your mind to keep doing the right things, to keep trusting God, to keep focusing on your job search and do the right things there, and He'll make your path straight. So the second thing is real simple. Second thing to managing your discouragement in a job search tip is serve. boy, when you're unemployed, when you're focused on a job search, man, there's a whole lot about you all day long. It's focused on me, why I don't have a job. You're analyzing all these things, which are good things to analyze. But the best thing you can do for yourself is not spend all of your day searching for a job. Get out of the hole. Get out of the focus that you have on you all day long, and serve. Volunteer somewhere. This is a great place to volunteer. I'm sure they'd be glad to have you. Serve in the community. You can read books to a kid on Tuesday mornings for the library group. It only takes a half an hour of your time. I'm sure they'd be glad to have you. You can volunteer at the Humane Society or at the zoo or a nursing home, or I don't know, whatever you want to do. Find something to do that's serving people and not about yourself. And it's going to take some of the focus off and really help lighten your load a little bit. Good. Well, that's all I have there. And I really just want to spend just a couple of